gone wrong there. Nothing to do with that. It's just, oh God, I must have caught something. That's all right, it's still working. Right, let's get on the comments and see what we're doing. Right, okay then, I think all systems go. So I think we're all right. I'm just going to move this handle out the road. Just trying, and this is a new piece of software because the last one I was having buffering problems. So we're just trying this out and seeing. And at the moment it says excellent connection. Yeah. I've got Alan here in the studio.
You got plastic on the floor?
Hey?
You got a bit of plastic on the floor?
Bit of, oh no, I haven't. I haven't got any plastic on the floor. I'll end up just making a mess. So I'm going to do Venice. I was going to do an upright one. That was my plan, to do an upright one of a painting I'd done in a watercolour. But this is a watercolour I'd done a few years back. And our Lynn wants me to do that one in pastels because she wants more bonnier colours. So that's the one we'll be doing instead of an upright, duller one, as our Lynn said. So I'm going to turn to this. I'm going to just draw it in lightly where I want to be and then build the pastel up. So at the moment, I don't have any comments. So I'm presuming people aren't switched on yet. It's still a minute to go. That's maybe why the people aren't switched on. But I'll turn the camera over to the other setting. Oh, good morning. Hiya, Ken. You've got your artist apron on today for the dust. You'll need it, Ken. You will need it. So, yeah, so keep that on. I'm going to have dust all over the place. So, right, so, wow, she makes a racket downstairs, doesn't she? So I'm going to do this one, which is a watercolor. That's a picture of a watercolor I did in Venice, and do it as a pastel and make it nice and sort of bright. So I'm going to draw it in just with a pencil and just draw it in lightly to get an area where I want to be. I'll just have to stick this picture down so that I can work off it. I'm not sticking lavishly to it. I'm just going to get it in. So I want these buildings over this side to be sort of warmer but darker and the sunlight catching the far distant here. So I'm going to sort of go about the middle area, about the middle, and draw the right-hand buildings in. So these buildings are coming down here like that. Morning, Janet, you all right? I'll have to keep turning around and looking at the comments to make sure I'm getting you in. Right, so this is what I'm going to be. And I'm not going right to the edges because we need a lot of that for like handling of the picture afterwards. So this is the outside edge, and you're going to have various sort of windows and openings going down here. Like I say, I'm just drawing them in fairly random at the moment, and then we'll build it up in pastel as we go along. So coming down to there, so over here is sky, and the lighter buildings that's in the distance sort of going around. This is the corner, and these buildings on the left are sort of going around the corner and just catching the light. So you need that to come in there. So this is the far buildings. We'll go over the lines. The lines won't be rigid. So this is just to show you where we're going to be. So this is going to be the lighter sort of buildings up here, like that. And a bridge about here. And you can't see the gap, but the street behind here is where the people come across the bridge. So you've got the bridge in there, and then they vanish over to that side as well. I will alter it as I go along, just depending on what I see when I get it drawn in. And then in front of the bridge down here, you've got that's your line coming back. So it's sort of coming up like that. That's the bottom where your river's going to be, where your stream's going to be. And then this comes a bit farther down because it's more in front and off into the darkness over here. And then we've got a couple of little boats in the distance, a boat just here. Not a gondola, these are just little personal rowing boats just here. And then a bigger one down here. I'll I'll move the canvas down, the easel down when I come to do more detail on this boat. So this boat's just in here like that, curve round, seating in it like that. You can't see it, but don't worry about it at the moment. I'll come down to it. And then you've got another boat just on the far side there, a couple of them. Just little rowing boats, and then you've got a bigger one just here. So the bigger one is like there. That's the back of it. That's the seats. And then behind that, there's an arch. Got an arch there. You've got windows in here, little windows in here. I'm not drawing them too detailed because I'll probably lose them with the pastel when I come down with the pastel. And then you've got various openings at different levels across here. And then up here, a balcony. So you've got a little balcony sticking out just here. And because you're looking up underneath it, you can see the underneath of this balcony because you lower down, looking down. And then below it, a doorway entrance and another balcony just about here, like that. And we've got some flowers on that balcony, so we'll put some flowers on, begonias or whatever. Another archway down there, a couple of windows in. Like I say, I'm doing it in roughly because I intend doing pastel right over all of it, so I'm not sticking to the rules. Make that just a bit taller, I think. Yeah, just make that just a little bit taller. So that's sort of your basic drawing. This is going to be darker, not dull, because our Lynn's happy with all the brighter parts of the pictures I've been doing in pastels, but more in shadow down here. It's coming into shadows down here. And this is catching the sun, so that you can't see it, but these are buildings here as well. So there's actually buildings just in the distance like that. The sky doesn't come right down because these buildings are going right round, but I'm going to put them that light so they look as though in the distance, they're going round the corner. So I've just sketched that in loosely with a pencil. What I'm going to do now is start putting the darker pastels and building the levels up. So I'm going to put darker pastel in, gradually turning into light, scrumbling over the top, keep this light a light sky. So I'll start with a real sort of dark brown here. And these are the Diane, I'm forgetting the name now. Wait a second, find out where she's at. Diane Townsend. Right, so I've got a dark umber, and I'm going to sort of just scrumble. I'm not going to put on anything heavy. I'm just going to scrumble into this side, because this side wants to be as though you're deep in shadows down here. And I'll be using some blues, etc., to keep them shadows intact. So I'll be putting more darker colours down and gradually building these up. So it's just and the reason I'm using a dark brown paper as well is the fact that if you miss anything out, it's fine. It's not going to affect you. So a little bit down there. Now I want these. I'll raise the picture up when I come to do the water and the boat. At the moment, I'm going to leave it where it is and concentrate on the building. So I've got that. What I want to do is get more shadows down in this bottom right-hand corner. So I'm just going to get a strong purpley colour. In fact, I'm going to get a stronger one, that darker one than that, and darken down and blend in down into this bottom corner. So can you see the blues going in? They look very bright. They get dulled down here and there as we go along, down to where the boat is. And I'm going to scrumble this in different directions. I'm not going to have just the lines going down all the time. So I'm going to sort of scrumble along and break it in different directions and layer pastel over pastel. Like I said, this wasn't the intended picture, but this is one my daughter's decided she wants me to do. So I got that into there. And now we're going to fetch in some more ochres. Some more ochres over to the side to build up the levels. To sort of turn out from the shadow into the light a bit. And to make it more random, I'm scribbling in different directions. When I come later, I will soft pastels just over the top, just to lift it out. But at the moment, I'm just sort of crisscrossing and blending. I'm having to work underneath the camera here. So I'm actually bent down under the camera with the arm, sort of a contortionist, like that. And we've still got excellent connection. So everything is looking all right with this software. These walls have got all sorts of colours, these walls, just getting a nice brightness. Really are strong shadows. That bridge, when you come from that bridge, you're in narrow lanes down here, and then you come over the bridge and in, like from that side to that side, and then you see the boats down here. I've seen lots of traffic jams with gondolas as well. Right, so building it up like that, just to get where we want to be. Establishing the shape, really, more than anything, just establishing the shape. I'm going to put the sky in over here, and then start detailing bits. And the sky's going to go in here, just a very, very pale pinky blue. So this is going to be where the sky is. Don't worry if you can't see just the top, because I'm going to crop the picture, so it's only going to be, it's not going right to the top. You're not missing anything up there. So just put that into there like that. So that's the end of the building. Down there, and that's going to be light, sunlight in there. So we want the sky in to have a bit more colour into it. So I'm going to put little bits of green in, very pale, just to get a sense of light and colour into this. Into there. And then an ochre. And just a very clean, light, yellowy ochre. The main thing to do as well when you're doing pastels is, like I've said before, have a tissue, a roll of tissue, and just rub the pastel onto it. It gets rid of any dust where you're going over top of other things. So putting the ochre into the sky. I'm not looking for a bright blue sky. I'm looking for light. Just drifting that in. Like that. And this is going to come down into here. Going to come down into here and be part of these buildings that you can see in the distance. So that's going to come down to sort of the top of that bridge like that. So we're establishing that side of the bridge. I've got wires coming from all directions, trying to avoid them. So down here, we want to get a suggestion of distant buildings. So we'll put in a brighter sort of yellow first. Down here, and these are buildings that's just in the distance. I'm going to tone them down and put in some shape to them. But I'm just trying to get them, and they're just sort of vanishing away out of sight. So they're going around the corner. I'm going to tone them down. That's the bridge just there. So I'm going to tone them down so they don't stand out too much. And I'm going to use just a sort of a pinky colour and just create tops of buildings, and then just dragging down very loosely over it, like that. So you get what you want is a suggestion of light and shade onto it a bit, just seeing through it. So you get a suggestion of windows and lights in the background without actually having to, and I've forgotten where I took the pink from, without having to actually draw it in too heavy. I'm going to just put, as we're going down at the bottom, just a little sense of blues. just into their bottom colour. So you're creating a sense of shade. And I think that pink might be just too bright. So I'm just going to put the blue across it. Like that. Just rub it in a bit because I don't want it to stand out too much. And then just sort of suggest a few doors, etc. You don't need to do a lot with this particular picture, with this particular part of it. You just need to sort of just give an impression of going around the corners like that. And just bits of blues in there. I might put a little bit paler than that. Might just put a little sense of pale blue up in that sky a bit because it's just a bit too yellow. Just rub it in with your finger a little bit. I'm not normally a blender, but the things, but just crisscross it. And I'm quite happy to have the paper showing through. I'm quite happy to have the paper showing through because it adds to all the sort of the effect of the pastel. So that's going to be the distant buildings around there. And then we're going to gradually, there's actually a shadow between. So I don't want it to be strong. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ochre. If I can find a little bit of ochre down the edge of this building here. That's too strong. Just something a bit lighter. Just something a bit lighter. I'm going to build up a bit of shade down the side. So that's the end of that building there. And I'm just going to put a bit more, it's bright, so I'm going to put a bit more blues into it so that it tones it down, so it's not too bright. So I'm just scrumbling a little bit of blue into that. So you're just getting that sort of gable end to that. And then I'm going to start fetching in the buildings over here a bit stronger. So I want a bright sort of light to these buildings. So I'm going to use a really bright pastel. And I'm just going to go down here hard like that and just create the edge. So you can see the gable, like the end of the gable end of the far buildings. And this comes up here and into here. Like that. So that's nice and bright. That's separated the background from this. And what I want to do now is put various colours into this so that we get light and shade. I don't want to be dead bright, but I'm just sort of scrumbling in colouring into here, just under the balconies there, and getting a really lighter patch. And now it's really a matter of putting various colours in. So I'm going to use different ochres into the bottom, lighter ones just here and there into this bottom area. This is the same ochre as I used over on there. And that way you get a bit of a balance. You don't have everything just one sort of colour and one the other. So this is sort of the same ochre, just coming into the shadows down here a little bit. And just scrumble it in. Just lightly scrumble it into that colour over the side. So you don't want it to be too severe. I want to get the tones knocked down a little bit. I don't like that bright white one there. I'll just tone that down a fraction. So scrumbling these ochres. So everything is going to be pastel over pastel, just lightly dusted in through where the balcony is going to be. Alison, morning. On the way to Ushore, a heron flew over, and when I arrived, a barn owl flew in front of the car. What a treat. Oh, yeah. Right, Alison, we are using that new software, and it seems to be working fine. Touch wood. So, the whole thing of this is to build up a scrumble of colour, and then we sort of blend over it. So you're just crisscrossing and building up this area here. We've got the light area over there. So that's building up the shadow. The water, as I said, what I'll do is I'll raise the level of the easel up and do the water itself in one go. It just wants a reflection of the pastels you're doing, but I will actually lighten that up and do that afterwards. And where's the piece of paper I took? Oh, it's in my hand. Sorry, folks, I'm just talking to myself. I'm trying to keep these pastels, these Diane Townsend, in the original wrappers so that I know what numbers they are if I want more. Right. All I'm going to do here is put in lots of colour, varying colours, pinks, blues, everything, and just let them build up into a nice sort of theme. So can you see these real hard colours in? And I'm just tracing them now. I'm putting them in little areas and just tracing them in so there's nothing too heavy. The underneath colour's fine. All you're doing now is just building up levels, building up little bits of colour. So I'm just putting them in. They'll get lost in places. The whole idea of the pastels is to layer things in. Look, the camera you're looking at there, Alan, is so bright.
Yeah.
Alan is in the studio watching, and he's watching on another TV, and the brightness on that TV is just too much. It looks really severe. Right, so dusting in like that, and do the same on here. This wants to be lighter over here. It doesn't want to be dark all the way, so just add a few sort of little bits of colour here and there. And I'm going to overlap these colours, something rotten, so they just all blend and become different areas like that. So put that back. I'm going to even get some warmish pinks and reds in, so I'm going to get a little bits of pink, rubbing it on the tape the paper like that, and adding various colours, creating a myriad of colour. So I want the texture to show through. I don't want it to be just a flat colour. I want texture to show through. So that's why I'm scrumbling various colours over the top, and you can see the texture of the other colour showing through. So it's like just sort of levels. And when you get back off it, it just blends nicely. So you're layering it on with colour upon colour. And just suggesting little bits of the same colour in other parts so that you get a unity. So a little bit of the same sort of pinky colour that's up there into there. Odd little bits here and there like that. Might put some flowers hanging down off there, over there, into there. And it's really building these colours up. I'm going to put some bright yellows in a minute, but at the moment I'm putting some ochres in. So just an ochre. It looks really bright. It is really bright. I'm taking the strokes different ways, different angles, so you're not sort of making a uniform thing. You're crisscrossing to get sort of a cross-hatching of colour. You can see different bits of colour going different ways in this picture. So you're just sort of cross-hatching. Start to get a little bit more colour into this side up here, because this is catching the sun from the top above, so it wants to be a bit more sunnier up here than it does down into the channel. And like I say, you might not see me hand just up the top there, but that's just going to be cropped at that top area. And I'm going to do the same colouring on this side. So this is going to be in shadow, but you're getting a reflected light off these walls onto here a bit. So you don't want this to be just solid dark. You want a sense of reflected light off this set of walls across here. I'll grey some of these down a bit so they're not too bright. I don't want them dead bright over this side. I'll put some windows in afterwards. So just building that up bit by bit. Darkening it down across here as it's coming through. So little bits of pastel. This is quite small, this bit to get hold of. But if you can, and it looks dead bright on the screen, but it's not as bright as what it does look on the screen. So don't think it does look bright, but it's not as bright. Trust me. When you get back off it, it doesn't look as bright. But I'm going to tone all these colours down in a second. So I'm just building up. Now what I want to do now is put some definite edges in on places so you get some accents. So I'm just literally dragging in some accents of bricks here and there, which will become a feature. And I want to blend this together a bit. So I'm going to drag a lighter pastel just across it because I don't want too much definition between there and there. So I'm scrumbling pastel in. Bit harder just at that edge there. And leaving that pinky blue just alone. Leaving that pinky blue just alone. It's all about just layers and letting layers of pastel show through. Little bits of pastel showing through. Just dusting it on. It's like just sort of tracing it on, just side of the pastel and just tracing this in. A little bit more light just here and there on that edge there. When I put the windows and doors in, then we'll have some definition, some accents to it. One or two little bits of light just coming from the top. Right, I'm going to start toning this down over to this side. So I'm going to be using darker ochres and bits of pink and gradually bits of reds and gradually toning this side down so that it gradually comes into shadow. And the pastel is good for making this sort of broken wall effect. Little bits into here. That's fine. And you want some warmer colours down into shadows on this side. Some bits of blues, more like a violet, bits of violets down in here. So just getting some nice strong colours into the camera is just picking up blotches, but if you see the picture when I take a photograph, there's actually all sorts of textures coming through. So you're touching it on, just creating a bit of blues down that bottom part of the wall, so it feels as though it's getting little bits of colouring coming off the water itself, or a little bit into there. Just some accent. Make the colours sing on this pastel. A few little blues just into that side there, and then some darker ones into here. A few sort of grey feeling here because you've got a balcony ledge just there, and you want a sense of shadow underneath it. So I'm going down into this corner, into here as well, and making some stronger bits of shade into there. I'll tone them down so they're not as gaudy as they do look, and just dusting down into here. Twisting my arm under the camera. And down in here where the boat's going to be as well, I want the blues to sort of just go into the boat to sort of create this shadow down here. That's fine. Just one or two just into here. A little bit there. Right, we need to get a ledge in, and then we need to get some uniform colours in. It could be the software is making this look very, very strong, and I might have to adjust that, but trust me, the colours, they're bright though, aren't they, Alan?
Yeah.
They're not as bright as on that camera light, but never mind. Right, I want a darker blue into these. I want to dull these blues down, so I'm getting one of the Townsend ones, the darker ones that we usually get, and just scrumbling into that so it's not as bright and gaudy as it looks, but it wants to have colour. I want this whole pastel thing to sort of sing out. And we are having no problems with buffering as far as I can see. This shadow will come down into the water and into the boat as well. So we'll get that. Put a bit more over here so it's just a little sensitive. I'm going to warm the shadow up on this side a bit. So it's just a bit, and that will be the water. Just little touches. Just little touches like that. I'm going to use that. No, it's too strong. I was going to use it to create the top of the roof here, but I think it's a bit strong. So I'm just going to use a lighter ochre and just create a sense of a ledge. I'll just tilt the camera up a bit for you because you can't see that, can you? There you go. Just tilt a sense of a ledge just there, going off, and then just drag some bit of pastel down, and then a sense of a ledge there. So it's sort of stepping down. An edge there. Now you can use the same colour and you can suggest some doorways and windows coming down here. So just putting some strokes in for sort of doors, etc. Keep them narrow because the angles are going away from you. So keep them fairly narrow, and you want another one sort of about here. So I'm just using the edge of the pastel. I'll darken parts up, but I just want to get a sense of where they are really. So harder lines into here and just creating these doorways. Like that. The one there. Just building them up. And then there's the archway just above the boat, just there. There's an archway, so just sort of get that started like that. Some little windows next to it. Windows here and there. Doorways just in here. I'm just marking out where they're going to be, and then I'll just define them a bit better. And then you've got an archway here. Just dragging that down like that. And then you've got the underneath of that balcony. So I'll just put it in. This is the balcony at the top. Just going underneath it like that. Shaping where it's going to be like that. You've got another balcony just above this archway here. So that's just the lines for it. We're just defining lines at the moment. Getting them in. And then you've got the arches, windows, that's fine. Right, sort of draw, I'll get a little bit darker and draw in some of the windows and doors on the other side. So I'll use a darker pastel, a darker brown, just to start building up. And then I'm going to grey through it so that you do get a sense of edge to this. So you want some hard edges and you want some soft blurry edges. So this is the top of the roof here, like that, the top of the edge of the roof coming down. And then it comes down and then you can see another sort of section just behind it a little bit, just there. And then a doorway or window just in there, little one coming down there. You've got levels of bottoms of sills coming along here. These are like underneath the sills, these darker patches like that. And from down there, you've got one or two little windows going down like that. A little doorway, just as though there's a shutter just open, just there, just the edge of the building, as though you can see a shutter open on the edge there, which helps shove that back. And then a little window next to it, another little window, and then a bigger one. Once I've got these marked in where I want them to be, and they're all random, there's nothing sort of going down, that one has to be there, so that one has to be there. And then you've got another large one just there. And then you've got a shutter. The shutter just open there. So that's going to be a shutter, like open out to the edge in there. And then next to that, a darker window. Sorry, I keep catching the camera. A darker window. You've got two big dark windows just here. Coming down there like that. And then a series of smaller ones just coming up here. One or two on this side. There's a couple of shutters open on this side, smaller because they're meant to be farther away. So there's a couple of shutters just open on that side there. Like that, a couple of doorways. Right, getting it established in. All we've got to do really is sort of just blend some of these colours in and make them work. So we need to put in, I'll put in more strong accents on these shutters and doors afterwards, but we need to sort of darken down these blues and the shadows down. So a really darker brown and just scrumbling it lightly into the blues so that they don't remain too bright. That's quite a harder pastel that I might just try and get a soft one. It's a bit hard, that. I'll just put it on and then scrumble over with a softer one to break it up a bit, because it does feel quite, in fact, that's probably quite strong and useful for doing in the windows, just that little bit stronger. So like into the side edges, just making them a little bit stronger. Just a much darker pastel, this. That's all right. I think I'll use that just at the top edges and just establish the top edges of the excuse me, of the sort of the window interiors. So I'm just going into the top edges, not all the way down, just darkening the sides. That's the balcony, or the bottom of a window sill. So you just put a window down. That's the bottom of another one. Bit of shadow. And then these, make these quite strong up into the top sort of corner. And then just sort of ease off as you're coming over to the left hand side. If I keep catching, it's me keep catching the camera that knocks it down. That's what Jennifer, easy getting onto this. Yeah, it is, and it's not buffering at all, Jennifer. It's not buffering at all. And I can see all your comments, whether you're coming from Facebook art groups or whether you're coming from YouTube. Make this a lot broader, like that. So you're building up the levels of where you want to be. And down here is going to be the bottom of the edge where the water's going to start, and the boats are going to come in there like that. So that's sort of the back of that board, and you would get a reflection of the windows and doors down here. I'm going to go into the archways and darken them down. Over on the sort of the left-hand side, just get that sense of curve and a straight line down for the arch. Just leave it with shadow on the right-hand side. I'll just blend it in a little bit like that with my finger. Just leave it with a bit of shade. Top corners like that of these window frames. Down into there. A little window just to the side of that. The longer door just there. Underneath the bridge wants to be about here. So the bridge is going to be a line across there. And then sort of curved out, and we'll tidy that up after. Shutters in there. In the tops of the window frames, dark in the top corners. This is a dark brown. Dark in the top corners, and leave the light showing on the actual side wall, the thickness of the wall. So you're just sort of darkening down the top corners. And just pulling it down the left-hand side of it. So you're leaving light on the edges. Now up here, just a lighter tone. I wouldn't get too dark up here. Just let them blend in a little bit, so they just suggested more than actually putting them in solid. Couple of little ones just there, like that. Underneath the balcony now, harder. Tilt the camera back up for you. You can see where the top of the sky is off there. So put that balcony in strong, just there. Don't put a strong dark for the actual underneath of the balcony. So I'm drawing the balcony in quite strong along there and sort of curve down. So this is the actual underneath of the balcony, like that. And we'll put the railings in afterwards. And from there, you've got a darker window just coming down underneath it, down to the next balcony. And that's coming down like that. If these lines look a bit slanty towards the edge, it's just the camera distorting it. If as you're going out, the camera's sort of moving them up a bit. So you've got another, you've got this archway here. So a strong dark for the archway under there. It's like a slight curve to the top. Pull it down like that. Draw the balcony underneath. You don't see underneath like you see up there. You don't see underneath because you're down at a low level. You just see it sort of a start of it like that. Into there like that. That's all right. Right, now I'm going to start putting sunlight into this side and shadows and a bit more sunlight just into there. You'll see how the colours here, like I said, on this, I'll have to sort out though, because I think the camera is showing them up very, very bright. It looks big patches, but there's actually lots of little pastel just showing through. You would have to see it as a whole. So what I'm going to do now is put some sunlight into here and scrumble it in, and then, so I'm getting a nice bright yellow, and then start detailing. So I want a sense of sun on some of the walls that's sort of just broken texture. Where the blues are, even drop some little bits in where you put the blues down at the bottom, just creating that little bit of broken texture. I want a lot of light just under that balcony so that it looks as, you know, so the balcony's in a bit of a silhouette. So I'm putting a lot of strong light just underneath that balcony. So you've got a sense of the shadow and the shape of it. And above it. So the sun's meant to be hitting the tops, coming over and catching the tops of these buildings here. So the sun's sort of hitting the tops a little bit. Now, even where you've got just clean the pastel, even where you've got the doorways, just lightly scrumble some pastel into them. So you're creating just a blurred edge. I don't want them to be too sharp. So I'm just dragging little bits of pastel into them, toning them down. Want a little bit of light round the side of this archway here. So it's got to be darker than the wall. So I want to lighten that wall where the in fact, what I'll do is I'll put light in for the architecture around that arch, like that. I'll have to take it down now for you. So taking light round that dark, that's sort of your archway there. Pull it down. Do the same with the archway while you're on. Building that light up. And then we just need to shadow into there a little bit. So you just want a sort of a dullish brown. Like that. So you've got the edge of the brickwork, but you let it go into shadow just up there. So you just blend it in so that it just goes in underneath and goes into shadow. And then there's just a mooring post by the looks of it just there. Do the same with that, just a little sense of light on the inside edge. This is sort of the thickness of your walls. Like that. So you're just getting that thickness of the walls in. A little bit of shadow underneath there. Like that. I'm going to put some flowers in there afterwards. So I need to create a few bits of brickwork. So I want a sort of an off brown sort of colouring, and just create some sharper edges to suggest some individual bricks here and there. And just go over, don't make them too precise. I'll tell you what, that's just a bit too hard, that pastel. Just a bit too hard. There we go. When you're dotting these in, make the perspective right. So you're dotting them in the direction of the perspective, the way you're going like that. If they look too much, just blend them. If they look a bit too much. Now I need to pale this down. It's very bright, so I need to pale it down. So I'm going to use just a sort of a grey feel, like a pastel, but it's trying to grey it down a bit. So I've got a little bit of very pale blue, and I just want to tone it down a fraction. just over into the edges. So all the layers of pastel, because I'm putting this on quite soft. This is Terry Ludwig pastels. All the layers of pastel you can't see, but if you come close up, they're all showing through this picture. So all the layers are coming through the picture. Just building a sense of shape and colour up. And I'm going to do some up here as well. So just into here. Same principle. I'll put the edge in, but I'll not make the edge too hard. I don't want it to be too much of a silhouette of an edge. I just want to get a feeling of shade across the edges. So and I've lost a pastel somewhere. There we go. Right, lighter colouring in. So I'm going to go in with some really light edges to get a sense of sunlight on parts. So even where I've gone with the blues, I'm just going to drop some lighter edges in here and there, and I'm going to scrumble them different directions so not everything is coming down. Not every stroke is downwards, like a crisscrossing of colour. And building the pastels up. A bit more light just down into here, I think. Just a little bit more light into there. Maybe that top. And a little bit more light just into these edges here. Down in the side. Right. I've got to get a slightly stronger edge just here so it pulls it forward from that, but I don't want it to be too specific. So I'm going to use just a pencil and just put in a suggestion of edges here, but nothing. I'm not making anything too hard, so I'm just creating the feeling of ledges coming down here through here. And like I said, there's a shutter just sticking out there, and then your bridge is going across the top like that. So I'll just draw it in. A little bit of darker water just under the bridge there, just drawing that in like that. One or two harder lines for the edges of them. These sort of like the shutters just going out, so you could put them in a bit stronger. Right. You want a light past, well, I'll tell you what, first of all, get a dark, and I'm just going to put these darks in here, just under the edges. And this is like a shutter sticking out. So just sort of draw lines across so it looks like it's coming out, and then we'll put some lighter lines in for it. And then there's a dark opening just beyond it, like that. And I'll just put some darker ones in just there. Right. I keep saying right. Keep saying right. I'm just working out where to go with everything. I want a very light pastel. I'm going to go around the edges of the windows and just lighten up the sort of the feeling of edges. So around these arches. around the tops. Do the same for the windows. You don't need to do too much on the side, but just sort of do the sills in. That might be a bit bright. I'll just get a slightly darker one. A slightly darker one, and just try that so it's not as bright. I'm trying to find a slightly darker one. In the shadows, it doesn't want to be too dark. These are the sills under the windows, just going along like that. Just flicking underneath your windows. Flick a little bit of top spin on as well if you want. You can put a little sense of a little bit of light down the outside edge. Basically, just put the edges in. Now, farther over, you can go back to your lighter pastel because it's, sorry, I've just knocked a bottle over. Farther over, you can go back to your lighter pastel and just put an edge to the side of the doorways so they're just catching the light. Ledge underneath, like that. This is in the sunlight. Ledge underneath, another ledge there. And you can just lighten up round the tops a little bit. Like I say, some of these windows and doors aren't all in a uniform shape like they would be with ours. Into there like that. A bit of light across the top of the bridge. That's it. Now I'm going to just start toning these down. I want to put the same on there, but not as strong, because I don't want them to be as lit up as much as that. So I'm going to use just a softer, lighter than that, but darker than that, and just put some edges in under these windows. Perspective-wise, they've got to be heading that way. Up the picture a little bit. Not that one so much. I don't like that shutter. I'm just going to blur that shutter out there and just put some light edges just down the side of that doorway and just an edge to it. Some light touches underneath here. Like I say, it might look to you on a slant, but it's the camera. The camera's that close up that the edges get distorted a bit. Down into there. Don't know where that's come from. Right. I think we're all right with that. I'm just going to put some shadows underneath these balconies here. So there's just a little sense of shade just being made just underneath them. Nothing too heavy because the sun's not hitting them, but just a sense of shadow and greyness just underneath there. Little bits of colour in here and there. Right, I'm going to lighten that up a bit because it's too much the same as this. So I'm just going to get a very pale bluey grey, and I'm just going to lighten that distant wall up a bit. So it does just feel as though it's going round the corner over there in the distance. That's better. Same light just underneath. We need a little bit more light into these walls, just on the sides. Just little bits of ochre. We do get just a feeling of more reflected light over there. So I'm just scrumbling a bit more pastel in over to that side. And then just down the edge a bit. I think that's fine. A little bit of light across the top of that balcony edge. Can you see that? Just put a little bit of light across that top of that balcony edge, and the same across that one. Like that. So just lightening that balcony edge up. Flick for the top of that boat, the curve of that boat coming round. So that I know where my boats are. That pole down there. Light into there. Right. What I'm going to do now is lift it up and, well, I'll tell you what, before I do that, I'll put the balconies in. I'll use a pastel pencil so that I can get I'll use a pastel pencil so that I can get the shape in it. Use the point. Hello, you all right?
How are you?
I'm fine, yourself?
Well, I've been through the wars, but I'm fine.
All right. Yeah. This is Alan.
Yeah, hello.
And this is Bob.
Nice to meet you, Alan. Yes.
You've been through the wars, have you?
Well, I've had my eye operation.
All right, I was saying you wanted that
Yeah,
done.
they put a new lens in. They took there's a beginning of a cataract on. And you know, it was rather funny. Can I take this?
Yeah, you can take your mask off. I don't need that on.
Actually, what happened was, I was chatting to them. This is at Darlington Memorial Hospital where they did the operation.
Yeah.
And actually, the nurse who was sort of helping the consultant to do the operation, she said after the operation, she says, you said you used to do watercolour painting. That's how I noticed the line being out
of sync. Yeah.
out of sync, you know, lumps in it and all this. And she says, I don't suppose you could give an idea of what you saw when you were having the operation. So honestly, this is what happened. When I got home that day, it was about a 3.5 hour operation. Anyway, you can imagine I was tired, but I sketched down roughly what I'd seen. Now, the funny thing is, when they'd taken the lens out, I still could see.
Yeah.
Now, I saw very blurring images, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, remember that thing when you were a kiddie and you had the thing with all the stars in, you shoot it up?
Oh, I turned this, yes, kaleidoscope thing.
Kaleidoscope
Yeah.
sort of thing. I could see all different sparkles. I could see, you know, if somebody burns a hole in the metal plate.
Aye.
You see the burning going around
Yeah.
the circle. I saw these strange things coming in from the left and right. So what I did 6 little pictures. And I sent them off to him. I did them properly when I felt a bit better about a couple of weeks later. So anyway, I got a lovely letter back from him and saying, thank you so much. What we're going to do is laminate it and put it up in the ornithology.
All right, as an example. Yeah.
Because he says, we've never seen what
the person sees.
Yeah, what the person sees.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's very nice. And thank you so much for taking the time and all this thing. But he was a lovely chap. And I say was because, believe it or not, I was just telling him about 2 weeks ago, he had a massive heart attack and died.
Oh, God.
That's a consultant.
Terrible, isn't it, when these happen?
A chap called Chewbacca, an Indian chap. And like I say, I thought, dear me, I felt that. Even though I'd only seen it 3 or 4 times, I really think.
Well, you do. I'll just get on because I'm on live.
Oh, please. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, it's all right. It's all right. No, it's fine. I'll edit it out anyway.
Good.
Right. Okay, then. I'm going to use a pencil to put the balcony lines in, a pastel pencil, so it's I suppose it's easy. It depends on whether the pencil will move the pastel about. Oh, it's all right. Just a flick, really. You don't want it to be too... And so you don't have to draw straight lines. Do wiggly ornate lines, like iron lines coming down. Saves you having to try and draw straight. So it's wrought iron type feel. Just into these edges. And like I say, it'll be cropped here. And do the same for this. I'm going to put some flowers in here, but do the same. Just put a line down. Oh, I'm putting straight ones in here. They'll probably end up wiggly afterwards. Into there like that. And that's that balcony there. But I'm going to put some flowers in there. So I'm just going to drag in some dark pencil underneath and put some flowers into there. And you can use the pencil just to create some edges here and there where you might need some. Don't get bogged down too much with detail at this stage. This is just going to be where the bridge is going to be. And like I said, don't get too detailed. You want this to be more sort of abstract feel to it. And there's a boat just sat in the water beyond the bridge just there. So I'm just sort of drawing the back end of that boat in and maybe the front. It's like, see the front just there like that. And then there's a strong shadow coming out from underneath that bridge. That's going to be in there. What I'm going to do is raise this up and put the water in, because what time is it? 7:30. So I'm going to put the water in, and then I may end up later doing more detail into this actual buildings, but I want to get the water in so that it looks finished in that respect. That's the picture I'm using. It's my watercolour that I did a few years back. So I'm going to turn the camera down a bit and just raise the easel up a fraction. It all looks, that screen's too gaudy, you can see. It all looks very strong on camera, but it isn't. Right, there's the water. You can see the bottom of the pastel, the bottom of the tape there. So I'm now going to put the water and the boats in. So I'm going to use, just get my picture there, just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to do a reflection of the buildings. So I'm going to put a dark reflection in first, down here, directly down from here, even though it's lighter there, because it's meant to be a reflection. So down there first, round the edge of that boat, around the edge of that rowing boat, like that. Draw that in, and I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose all this shadow into the shadows at the bottom afterwards. So I'm just putting these in like this first, and I'm going to reflect the top edge of the building, even though it's a shorter reflection. So I'm going to reflect the top edge of that building down into there. I'm going to do darker bits down here. Just try and get that picture. So I'm going to draw a line down across there to where the boat is, up to the back of the boat. And this is the water line down here. A little bit of a step there. This is the water line. Just drag down. Make the boat dark. So the back side of the boat is there like that. The edge going forward. Sit it in the water like that. Draw the other boat, its backside in like that, and just a sense of the side of it up there, and flick that into the water like that. And then what you want to do now is start getting a similar feel to the pastel. So drag in little bits of blues and greys into this here so that you're reflecting down from it. And I would use downward strokes for this. I know we did strokes all over, but for this, I would use downward strokes and just sort of get a blend into there. Some little bits. What you're trying to do is create a sort of a moody feel to it. So I'm going to blur the line out that I put in by just dragging this blue over it and into the water a bit, so that it's not too much of an edge. and then use ochres to start getting the reflection looking like similar to that. So little bits of ochres pulled in. Downward stroke, just move that paper out the road, it's annoying me. Downward strokes like that. Build up the level with just downward strokes, and then you can put some reflections in. Even lighter ochres coming in over here. I'm not trying to paint this in, I'm trying to make it more abstract feel to it. So I'm just putting little strokes in like that. Even an odd stroke across to break up the edges. So you're just creating a little sense of reflection into this here and there. And then we want some brighter reflections down now off this. So I want to lighten this up, and then we want the water in. So you need an ochre. It doesn't have to be as bright as this because it's meant to be a reflection, and reflections are always darker. So down from there like that, angle it across so you feel as though you can see a reflection, but you're looking down into this water. You're on a bridge here and you're looking down into this water, so the reflection of the top will be shorter. It won't be as, you won't have to have the reflection as big as the actual building, so your reflection is shorter. So you're just drifting it down like that into there, and then a little bit of darker to suggest the roofs at the top. So you want a sort of a bit darker than that, something a bit stronger, but not so. Oh, I'm looking for a pastel that I need. I had all these pastels out, but they always get lost. Right, so a little bit darker, and this is sort of suggesting the roofs, the underneath of the guttering that you're looking at. So just putting that in like that, harder lines, and just suggesting the gutter. And now with the darker one, draw a little bit of reflection of some of the windows and doors. So just a few little silhouettes like that. A bit darker, and just put that in. A bit darker on these. In fact, I'll use that stronger pastel there. So a bit darker from these, and darker for these. So reflection down of them. And you close them up because you're actually looking down. You're seeing the whole thing reflected, but sort of compressed. So you're seeing it compressed as you go along. So lots of darks in there and little swirls, but a compressed view of the reflection. Darken that down under there. A darker sense under where the bridge is going to be. And then you want the water putting in. Now the water can be various colours. It wants to be similar to the colours there. So I'm going to start with just a pale sort of bluey mauve feeling just under there. So it's slightly, and I'm blurring them together. I don't want to define. It looks really bright on that screen, doesn't it? Yes. It's not a very good screen, that. So I'm putting this in and just sort of pulling that down like that. And then I'm going to put a bit of blue in. Just a little bit of paler blue, just to sort of build up levels. And again, just a blur, so everything behind is blurred. And you can have a sense of sort of shadows into these for doorways. So I'll just put a slightly bit darker to reflect down from what you're seeing up there that you're not actually seeing because I haven't put anything in, but just a little bit of reflection just to suggest shadows from the top. Now we'll put a bit of ochre in there so it's not too bright. So a little bit of yellowy ochre into there as well. downward strokes, you're creating reflections, downward strokes. And then we want the reflection of the sky into here now. So I'm going to make it on the bluer side, and I'm making it darker down in this bottom area here. So down at the bottom, I'm putting the blue in quite sort of stronger, taking it up into here, and then I'm going to lighten it up. Ignore the colors on the screen because the screen is showing, whoops, I think the screen is showing the colors too intense from what they are, but I will sort that out because this is a brand new piece of software. It does look like a Van Gogh thing. Right, so I want to lighten the sky up now and create the reflection. So I'm going to go in with just a lighter blue down here, like that. And I'm going to move these in and out rather than up and down, and move them into the wall and create some defined edges into the edge there. So into there like that. So you're just creating light into here. Now it looks very intense on the screen, but it actually is quite strong, isn't it? The picture I've gone for like bright acrylics, bright pastels. Get a little bit of light into this now. Really knocking this light in. Hello, Lynn. You're sneaking. And I want a little bit of ripple on this, so I'm actually pushing the pastel into the dark. So we're just creating a rippled edge a little bit. And blending that down into the sky a bit, because we didn't have a bright blue sky. We just need the sky to be knocked down. It's certainly not as blue as what it looks on the camera. Trust me on that. Want an ochre, just clean the ochre up. Sideways strokes and pushing them into the building so you get a ripple. You're building up a ripple and a sense of light from the edges. And just gently into the blue, because the blue's just too bright, just sort of scrumbling over. And then sideways so that it doesn't look too strong. Well, as far as connection goes, this is excellent. The connection has stayed on. It hasn't dropped out once. So as far as the connection goes, we're fine. Colors might be bright. A white, a light white into this. I think I've got a white somewhere. You know, white seems to be a pastel pencil I don't seem to have much of. In fact, this is just off-white. Some ripples into that. So you're just going in and creating ripples, sideways strokes. You're trying to create a wetness to the water. A little bit of ripple in here and there. And I'm going to put a little bit of ripple into the reflections as well, so that you just get that sense of ripple in there as well. Just with sideways sort of pastels, sorry. Just a little stroke. Little ripples just to suggest the light coming off them buildings, off them doorways. Into there. And I'll put a little bit of ripple in there, but not as bright as that. So I'll just put a few little ripples into there. That's looking all right. That's actually the top of a shutter that's coming out. Can't make my mind up on that yet. Right, I'm going to put the boats in, but I'm going to put some flowers in. What flowers do we put in? Begonias. It's always begonias, isn't it? I think it's begonias. A really strong red, and put some flowers overhanging off this balcony here. Strong red into there, overhanging them a little bit off the balcony. And I would suggest some over here as well. I'll put a strong red in, suggest some just into these shadows here. So just put a bit of a strong red in up there, and then I'll lighten, just as though it's coming out the window a bit, and then I'll lighten parts of that up. Just blur it a little bit. I don't want it to be too bright. Right, you need a lighter red now. You need a warm, bright, pinky colour, orangey colour. I don't know what begonia colours is. Right, so some bright reds just going in to this top here. And some dots down as though there's flowers hanging down. Brighten one or two little bits up there, just a few suggestions, nothing much, just a little flick of the eye. And then I'm going to start putting the bridge in with a bit more sharpness, and the boats in. Now the boats, you want to draw them darker, so I'm just going to use a dark hard pastel just to get the edge. In fact, I'm going to lift this picture up a bit because I'm starting to have to lean down to do this. So I'm just going to take the easel up a bit more so that I'm not leaning down so far. Otherwise, I'll end up with a bad back. So the boats want to be drawn in, and we've drawn boats in the art class before. You want a pointed area there, and it wants to curve out. On the far side of boats, it always curves outwards like that, and then comes back to you. The near side doesn't curve out as much because you're seeing it at an angle. You're seeing the side, so it comes out like that. The back of the boat is straight on the edge like that. It sits in the water straight. It doesn't sit as a curve. And then you can put a little bit of reflection underneath like that. The edge of it round here, it has a suggestion of a curve because it's coming down like that. But it lies flat in the water. It just gets broader to you because it's going away from you. So it gets broader here and there like that. You've got some seating, so just draw dark lines to suggest the bottom of the seating, parallel across the paper. And I'm putting reflections in so the boat sits on the water. There's two boats back there, so there's one with its back to you like that, the same as this one. And there's one with its front end sort of leaning up like that. There's a strong one just here, sticking out like that, and that goes up to that point there, dark across the back, curve it down to sit in the water. So it wants to be dark and then just coming out like that and then hitting the water hard, the edge hard like that. And again, inside the boat, a few seats like that. What you've got to be careful of is not making the boat look as though it's pointing upwards. Yeah. It wants to look as though it's going away, but it doesn't want to be pointing upwards. And this one's quite close to you. And I'm going to lose this side of the boat in the shadows. I will take a photograph of this afterwards to show you that it's not as bright as what you're seeing on the screen. And then it's down to me. I'll have to get, I think it's the camera. I think the camera settings must be quite bright on this picture. It's one of these GoPro cameras, and I think it's showing very intense screen. I might have to go into the settings and tone it down a bit because it just looks too gaudy, too bright. Right. drawn the sort of the line of the boat. What we want to do now is just get pastel and create the inside of the boat. So you want a sort of an ochre colour first, just to get the inside, and then we get some light. So just inside the boat. A little bit down there. Inside of these boats just here. I'm going to use some lighter lines in a second. So this is sort of the inside edge of the boats, inside of that one. But it comes into shadow, comes into the shadow of this building. So you just want to sort of get the start of the light like that, and then you get it, then it gets lost into the shadow. But I'll put some harder lines in to help you see that. And then this one is darker. We'll put some. Tell you what, I'll make that just a bit darker with a sort of a stronger brown, because it's a bit bright in there. So I'm just going to use a darker pastel and create the interior of this. Along here like that. And then we want some light reflection. So I'm going to use quite a bright pastel and just create the edges of these boats. So just across the top edge there, curving back. Might be too bright that, but again, it's part of the camera. And then this wants to sort of curve out a little bit, but then come back fairly straight like that. And then you want the seats in. The edges of the seats in like that. And then tone down. And then a bit of brightness on the edge of that boat. It's pointed towards you actually. And a bit of brightness on the top of that one. And then some brightness around the edge of this. Just where it's going out. Leave it in shadow along here. You can tone a little bit just to suggest the back edge of it, but leave it basically in shadow. And then a darker colouring for this, so it's not too bright. So the curve of the edge round here like that, sort of push it back. The curve of the edge just a bit duller, just a bit lighter, just over there. And coming out like that. And then the oars got some, well, you want a little bit of suggestion of the sort of the seat going across. A little bit of suggestion of the seat. And then we've got a couple of oars in there. A little flick of the structure of the boat just to get it in a sense of where it is. A little bit of light across there, like that. And then we need to sort of blend a bit of shadow across them seats. So the seats have a sense of shadow off the edge of the thing. So a little bit of shading into the seats on the sides. Like that. Just toning these oars and that down. I don't want this to be too much. I want it to be lost in this shadow down here. A little sense of it there. A little bit more reflection of light into there. Just a little soft touches into the water just under the boat. So they just get blended into the background. This has a couple of little bits sticking around, so I'll just put a back guide down the back of that boat there. And a bit of reflection of it. A few little marks into the water, so don't make it too defined. It just wants to all be looking loose. What time is it? This wasn't the picture I intended to do, you know. I was actually going to do a different one. Then now Lynn says, "Can you do that one?" So the picture I was going to do was an upright Venice. Right. What I'm going to do now is just blend in a little bit more ochre in parts of here, just scrumbling in very lightly, even to the effect of scrumbling through some of the harder pastel. I don't want this to be jumping out like hard lights and other lights. I want blending. I want it to just feel a bit more abstract. And it's only when you get close up here you can see all the colours breaking through from like that purpley colour there. There's loads of colours behind it. And I don't like that shutter. I might put sense of balcony rails up there. Just to fit that off. I think I want the bridge tidying up. I'm not putting any people in. The bridge goes, there's a gap here and a gap behind here, so the bridge goes through the steps either side of this wall, which you can't see, but there's steps coming up to the bridge. So that's why it looks short and narrower across there. A little sense of reflection and shadow underneath it. Lighten the top up a little bit. I have, oh, there it is, pastel pencil. Just to get a cleaner edge across there. There's actually railings on as well, so I'll put the railings on. I'm just going to lighten the tops up. The sort of the leading edge of the top of the bridge. Just seeing what time it is. We're all right. The curve of the stonework, just going round like that. And then, if you can, just suggest some of the railings. I wouldn't worry about it being too defined. Like that. A few little suggestions of things going on in the boats. What I do with all the pastels is I'll leave them for a day and then just decide. And if you want, after a while, you fill up with pastel, you get too much on. So you can spray a fixative on if you need to, which hardens part of it, and then you can go over it a bit. But I'm going to sort of dull this down so it all goes into shadow in this bottom area. So I want a really dark sort of blue feel, and I want to tone this into shadow. I want to make it look dusty and sort of smoggy. Is smoggy the right word?
I don't think it's one I will be happy.
So I'm pulling it into the boat so there's nothing too bright down here. So I'm sort of making it look foggy. That might have been the word I was looking for. Just blending this down and putting sharp edges of colour here and there so it's just blurred into a mist. It's sort of the feeling of the water just being misty down under the bridge where you're standing. And it looks bright. On my screen it looks bright, really bright, but it isn't. So I will take a photograph, and for the next one I will find out what the camera settings are, because I think it's coming out really too bright. A bit down into here as well. Similar feeling, just to create and push it into the boat. Just pull it into the boat so nothing is too specific. Everything's just sort of blended in a little bit. So you're getting a feeling of shadowy mist underneath this bridge that you're stood on, just down in this area here. So it wants to feel like that boat there is coming out from under the shadows, not coming out, but sitting, but coming out from under the shadows as far as the boat, as far as the bridge goes. And by blending these different colours into different parts, I'm not too happy with that red actually. I might just take that out a bit. By blending these shadows in like that, you create a unity. So if you have a bit of blue here, a bit of blue there, you create a little bit of a unity to the picture. I'm just going to get rid of that flower over the other side with a sort of a darker ochre. Or darker than that. There we go. Because I think it just does the eye in too much. It can be a suggestion of a darker plant just coming out of there. And then just a little bit of light so it doesn't stay too dark. So just a little. These Townsend pastels, Dan Townsend, they are quite big. They're big and chunky. So you get a bit more for your money because these are really big and they're good. And these are the Blue Earth ones, which are really small. And that's soft that you use them up quite quickly. The Townsend ones seem to be a harder pastel. So the Townsends are a harder pastel, so you can just sort of draw them in, and you're not sort of losing any effect. I don't want anything to be too sharp like that window there. Just blurring them in. They're meant to be in the shadow a bit, so I'm just blurring them in. And I think odd little flick of line. I think I'll leave it at that for the moment. Excuse me. And come back to it afterwards. I'm going to leave it to look a bit brown. I want to show you the photograph. I'll take a photograph of it. I'm just moving it back and adjust the camera so that you can see the whole picture as one. I think that's all right. It's very strong colours, but that's what I wanted. I didn't want it to be the same as the watercolour. I wanted it to have strength and colour. And I'll look at it for a while, and then I may just, in fact, I can keep on going, you know. I can keep on looking at things and just dragging more light in here and there. But I'm going to lighten that up. That's the part I want to feel as though it's going behind. I want that to feel as though it's right in the distance, going around the corner. A little bit of ochre into it. That's better. Can someone tell me to stop? Right, I'm just going to put a mount around. The mount's not the right size. My hands are filthy. I put a new clean shirt on this morning. I've got hold of it. I'll put a mount around just so you can get an effect. It might change the colour. The mount obviously isn't the right size, but you can, by putting a light colour around it, you can see the intense colours more. Yeah, it fetches out the intensity of the colour. Obviously, it's not the right size, but that's quite happy with that. What we've got and what we're doing when we can get it, because the lads who do our framing of all that isolates, one of them pinged. So all that isolates, so we've got no frames coming. But what we're doing is, with the pastels, they're all getting stored in a box that we've made, so they're not touching each other. And then I'm going to frame them. You'll see it afterwards when the frames come, but it's not going to be next week now. The frames, instead of putting a mount around them, or some of them we put a mount around, but some of them, Lynn's got a big moulding, some new mouldings. So we're going to put them with museum glass and spaces, so they're not touched by the glass, but they've not got a mount around, they've got a big, and see what they look like. And that will certainly bang the colours out when we do that. So I think if you're all there, Lynn will tell me off when she sees the floor. Yes, she will, Jennifer. Thank you, Janet. Love watching, beautiful. Yeah, it's stronger on the cameras you're seeing, but it won't be as strong on the video when you get the video. When you get the video, it should be all right. But I like that mistiness of dusty feel down there, just dragging a bit of dust in. And that's really all I wanted. I didn't want it to be too detailed. I'm fine with that. The floor, yes, Jennifer, the floor is looking a bit dusty, and I forgot to put the plastic sheeting down. Right. So I shall say ta-ra to use online, and that new bit of software, Ken's online, Ken Tooby, he said he's got his artist's apron today for the dust. Well, you should see my hands. Looking good, thanks, Ken. Yeah. Are you on about the pastel or me? Right. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave it at that. And like I say, it's not as contrasty and as strong as what it looks like on the camera. Definitely not. And Bob and Alan will attest to that. So the software's worked. I've been on, what, an hour and a half? Over an hour and a half been on, and it hasn't dropped off once. There was a couple of days it was dropping off all the time. It was getting annoying, but this has actually worked perfectly. Right, okay, folks, I'll say ta-ra if I can figure out how to stop this over here in broadcast. So I'll see you for a new one on Monday morning. And I'll send you the photograph of this up after.